Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name's Amy, and I'm an ordained minister, and we're in Bible study. We're in the NIV. We're in the book of 2 Chronicles. We are in chapter 7. The dedication of the temple. Now, remember, this is written in the time of the Babylonian diaspora. Biblical scholars, which I'm not qualified to argue with, think it was written by Ezra. It is certainly contemporary with Ezra. Ezra is the book that's after. This is just, we've got 29 more chapters to get through before we get to the Ezra, the prophet. The dedication of the temple. When Solomon finished praying, fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. I'm guessing it was a lightning bolt. I guess, or it could be like a small, maybe like a fireball. Because remember, around this, it's very the geography, okay, and I'm going to say on the geological level, very, very disruptive going on. There's two fault lines either side of the Jordan River. There was like 2 or 3, like in the history of the time frame of the Bible, there's 4 active volcanoes in the area, and the Dead Sea is so salty because it's surrounded by mountains made of salt, where there are literally pockets of natural gas, which one can induce visions in people. It also can, that means underneath there, it's basically, because it's not rock, it's salt. So falls apart easier, so the air can whistle through there and come up with any one of these pockets that could be probably like that big, maybe even smaller, around the ground, where the gas can come just wafting right up there and absolutely make things that sounds like voices, because we've all heard when the wind sounds like voices, and then but just shoot up pockets of the natural gas. So any little spark that goes on, and you can get this whoosh that just straight up in the air, and this will burn until that that pocket of natural gas that's leaking out just stops. So very, very tumultuous. So I know it sounds like that can't possibly be, but no, archaeologists has actually proven in the area where people were talking about Sodom and Gomorrah being in geography, burnt remains of charred stuff, where it would have looked like that. It would have been like a volcano erupted. Then it threw, some fire thing over that way, and it just hit one of those areas where there was a pocket of natural gas. They were over there collecting things like petroleum packets and things like that would just float up in the Dead Sea to sell, because those things were used in everything, and you could get rich off of that. And that's why they were, Lot was over there. Anyway, that's how Lot got rich. That was long before this. There was a reason. This thing was very tumultuous. So they're saying like a fireball came down, and it's like, I know that sounds crazy, but it's actually geologically possible. We would just have to try to find a record of anyone else writing about that from any of the other nations, and then we would know that this is the same time. The priests could not enter the temple of the Lord because the glory of the Lord filled it. When all the Israelites saw the fire coming down and the glory of the Lord above the temple, they knelt on the pavement with their faces to the ground, and they worshipped and gave thanks to the Lord, saying, "He is good. His love endures forever." You'd have to imagine that would be terrifying. Then the king and all the people offered sacrifices before the Lord. And King Solomon offered a sacrifice of 22,000 head of cattle. That is a lot of beef. And 120,000 sheep and goats. So the whole nation should have been very well fed. So the king and all the people dedicated to the temple of the God. No, not the God, of God. The priests took their positions, as did the Levites, with the Lord's musical instruments, which King David had made for praising the Lord. because remember, he was a rock star, and which were used when he gave thanks, saying, his love endures forever. Opposite, the Levites, the priests, blew their instruments, and all the Israelites were standing. Solomon consecrated the middle part of the courtyard in front of the temple of the Lord, and there he offered burnt offerings and the fat of fellowship offerings. Footnote on the traditionally called peace offerings, because the bronze altar he had made could not hold the burnt offerings. That's because there were so many. The grain offerings and the fat portions. So they had multiple fires going in order to dedicate to the Lord, inside and outside. And that's a lot of that. So Solomon observed the festival at the time for 7 days, and all Israel with him. A vast assembly of people from Lebo, L-E-B-O, it's got a footnote of B, from the entrance to, okay, oh, from the entrance of Lebo, Lebo Hamath, to the Wadi of Egypt. A vast assembly of people from Lebo Hamath to the Wadi of Egypt. Wadi is a river. On the 8th day, they held an assembly, for they had celebrated the dedication of the altar for 7 days and the festival for 7 more, just like, Moses' time. On the 23rd day of the 7th month, he sent, that's for us, that would be July 23rd. He sent the people to their homes, joyful and glad in heart for good things the Lord had done for David and Solomon and for his people Israel. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it was July for them, because that's not really how that worked. So that's like September, October, not July, in the Jewish calendar. Well, I went and looked it up. The Lord appeared to Solomon. When Solomon had finished the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, he had succeeded in carrying out all he had in mind to do in the temple of the Lord and in his own palace. Okay, the Lord, I guess that would be the definition of done. The Lord appeared to him at night and said, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a temple for sacrifices. When I shut up the heavens so that there is no rain, or command locusts to devour the land, or send a plague among my people, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin and will heal their land. So God's like, yeah, I'll take that deal. If they're willing to repent, I'm willing to forgive. That's still in the deal today, in case you were wondering. Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to their prayers offered in this place. Okay, and he's like, yeah, and I'll keep an ear out for what people have to say here. I have chosen and consecrated this temple so my name may be there forever. My eyes, my heart will always be there. Oh, he's got a soft spot in his heart for Israel and the temple, which is now destroyed. So it's under the dome of the rock, as far as I know. As for you, if you walk before me as David your father did, and do all I commanded, and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish a royal throne. I'm not saying they did anything to put it there. The temple was just built and destroyed twice. The second time was by the Romans long before the Dome of the Rock got there. It's just right now, that's what's in that location. So you can't go to Solomon's temple. It doesn't exist. All right, anyway. As for you, I will walk before me as David your father did. Now, as for you, if you walk before me as your David your father did, and do all I command and observe all my decrees and laws, I will establish a royal throne as a covenant with David your father when I said, you shall never fail to have a man to rule over Israel. But if you, in the Hebrew this is plural, So not just David, not just Solomon, the peoples. Who is the king responsible for? The peoples. His decisions can cause everybody else to sin if he makes a law that's a sin. But if you turn away and forsake the decrees and commands I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, which Solomon will eventually do, then I will uproot Israel from my land, which I have given them, and I will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. I will make it a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. And though this temple is now so imposing, all who pass by will be appalled and say, why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? People will answer, because they have forsaken the Lord, the God of their fathers, who brought them out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. That is why he brought all these disasters on them. Now again, remember, this is written during the Babylonian diaspora, so this has happened. They can't get anywhere near their temple. And they need to be reminded who they are, because they stripped those things away. The Babylonians didn't do anything that a bunch of other conquering nations didn't also do when they came through. I mean, it's absolutely no different than the conduct of the Romans or with the Greeks when they were a nation. When you're nation making, empire building, you remove them from their area so they can't have an upper hand if they decide they want to rebel. They don't know the land. I mean, they separate families from each other. Husbands and wives, children from parents, so that you don't have that cohesive unit to remember who you are. So the Levites are making sure the people remember who they are with these texts. So let's remember who we are as we go about the world today.